Got it. Well, welcome everybody. It's 12:30. We're going to get, thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to get started. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, good. All right. We will get started. I'm going to just really quickly remind you, short version of housekeeping for Zoom. Everybody will stay muted unless you'd like to speak. Use the chat, raise your hand. If you're calling in on the phone, you can dial *9 and that'll let us know you want to speak. But that's for our guests. If you're here, thank you for being with us today. And with that short announcement, that will take us to roll call.
Good afternoon, everyone. District 1?
District 1 is here.
District 2? District 3? District 4? District 5?
I'm here.
Banning? Banning? Beaumont?
I saw Banning on here, Lisa.
I did, and I just heard her.
I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all.
There she is. Okay.
Beaumont?
Here.
Thank you. Calamasa?
Here.
Canyon Lake?
Here.
Corona?
Corona's here.
Eastvale?
Here.
Hemet?
Here.
Harupa Valley?
Here.
Lake Elsinore?
Here.
Menifee? Moreno Valley?
Here.
Marietta?
Here.
Norco?
Norco here.
Paris?
Paris here.
Riverside? San Jacinto? Temecula?
Marianne here.
Thank you. And Wildemar.
I'm right here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
All right. Thank you so much. I just saw her go off camera, but Linda from Hemet, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? If you can't, that's okay. I just saw you went out. There you are. You're back.
I'm back. Yes,
You're back.
I would like to do that.
Okay.
Please, everyone stand. Put your right hand over your heart and recite with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's going to take us on our agenda to item number 4, which is public comments. Are there any public comments?
Natasha, this is Linda again.
Yes.
If just briefly, I believe Crystal Ruiz from San Jacinto is a member of this board.
She's a part of our executive committee as well. Yes.
And if you don't know, she is in the hospital.
We don't know that. Okay.
She's had some real issues over the weekend, is in ICU, and we are all praying for her. So if everyone on here who prays could lend some prayers for her to recover. It's a combination of issues that she's dealing with right now, but her husband Chuck and kids definitely need all the prayers they can get. So,
Oh my gosh. Well, Linda, thank
Oh
you
my
so
gosh.
much.
you're
We
welcome.
will all, why don't we just all take a minute? We'll take a minute of silence if prayer is your thing, or if not, just in thought of Crystal and her family. She is not only a member of our board, but she's a member of our executive committee, and she serves us her service is more than just RCA, dedicated to our whole valley. So let's just take a minute, you guys. Okay, thank you. We will be thinking of her and sending her her strength and prayers and thoughts and vibes and all the things. Oh man, I'm a little bit taken off. How about public comments? Any public comments? Do we have any
I'm
questions?
not seeing any hands raised, and we didn't receive any.
Okay. And I don't believe there's any additions or revisions.
No, there's not.
Okay, then we will go to item number 6, which is our consent calendar. Is there anybody that requests to speak on the consent calendar?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, then I will, what is the pleasure of the board for our consent calendar?
I'll move the fifth district.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I think we had a first by, I'm sorry, I was looking down, I didn't see. We have a
I
first
heard
and a
the-
second, but I'm not sure who. by.
I didn't hear the second. I heard the first from
It was-
Supervisor Hewitt. I did not hear the second.
It was, yeah, Supervisor Hewitt, thank you.
And then I think Canyon Lake.
Yes.
Thank you. District 1,
District 1, yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3, District 5,
Yes,
Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Corona,
Aye.
Eastvale,
Yes.
Hemet,
Yes.
Harupa Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Marina Valley,
Yes.
Marietta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
Temecula,
Aye.
Wildemar.
Yes.
Thank you. That item passes.
All right, that'll take us to item number 7, which is seven has 1, 2, and 3. And I know that Jennifer is going to be presenting. Are there any requests to speak before we take staff presentation? No, okay, then we will move to our presentation. Turn it over to Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Chair Johnson and board members. Today's presentation outlines the RCA's budget for fiscal year 22. RCA's budget preparation began in February with finance staff working with program staff to compile budget data and revenue estimates. Today, we seek your input and approval of the fiscal year 22 budget. Next slide, please. This year, to increase transparency and understanding of the annual budget, staff prepared an executive summary with all budget-related information in one document. The document includes budget policies, budget goals and objectives, a budget overview with discussion on the sources and uses of funding, program initiatives, fund balance, and a budget summary including budget schedules. The executive summary also includes 3 appendices. The first is simply a glossary of terms and acronyms. The other 2 are the fiscal year 22 work plans that describe the monitoring activities planned and the schedule for field work and include a cost estimate for personnel and operations costs. The MSHCP requires a biological monitoring program to collect data on the MSHCP's 146 covered species and their associated habitats, and to assess the MSHCP's effectiveness at meeting conservation objectives. The monitoring program administrator submits an annual work plan and cost estimate for the monitoring program to be approved by the RCA Board of Directors. The other work plan is related to the Clinton Keith Road overcrossing, mitigation monitoring reimbursable program in which the Riverside County Transportation Department reimburses RCA using banked fee credits. The fiscal year 22 budget and related work plans include the routine annual monitoring tasks and survey coverage support for a full-time Keno checker spot butterfly biologist, as well as the task to perform year 3 monitoring of the 5-year Clinton Keith Road overcrossing mitigation monitoring reimbursable program. This year, the work plans and cost estimates are included as part of the RCA budget adoption rather than as a separate agenda item. Next slide, please. The executive summary codified budget policies related to endowment, habitat acquisition, program administration, and the recently adopted Legacy Home Rebate Program. In accordance with past practices, 10% of the participating special entities revenues will be allocated to the endowment for future preservation. The 2020 Nexus study recommends that 15% of local development mitigation fee revenue be allocated to the endowment for future preservation. The MSHCP allows property owners who do not intend to file a development application to submit their properties for evaluation and possible acquisition under the Habitat Evaluation and Acquisition Negotiation Strategy, or HANS process. The plan requires separate accounting and a priority list be established for properties in this category. Yearly, the Board of Directors must set the non-development HONS funding level. Consistent with the fiscal year 21 budget, staff recommends allocating 5% of LDMF revenue collections for the acquisition of non-development HONS properties in fiscal year 22. The economic stability policy requires a minimum cash level of $9 million be maintained to continue operations for at least 18 months. LDMF revenues will be allocated to program needs related to habitat acquisition, reserve monitoring and management, program administration, and endowment funding in accordance with the 2020 Nexus study. Costs will be charged to the appropriate program, and LDMF revenues will be used to the extent that other funding sources are not sufficient to fund these programs. Next slide, please. Staff anticipates beginning the fiscal year with nearly $55 million in fund balance. Just over half of this amount is restricted in how it can be spent or is for non-spendable endowments. Fiscal year 22 estimated sources are budgeted at $53.3 million, and estimated uses are budgeted at $50.4 million. Sources are expected to exceed uses by nearly $3 million related to endowment funding. Next slide, please. Major funding sources include local development mitigation fees, state and federal grants, land donations, tipping fees from Riverside County, and transportation uniform mitigation fees. LDMF revenues represent 37% of sources and will be discussed more on the next slide. State and federal grants represent 31% of sources and include the remainder of the 2017 Section 6 grant and the Harupa Mountains grant, both of which will expire in the next year. Land donations are about 17% of revenues. Staff anticipates the acquisition of 14 land donations with an estimated value of $8.9 million and nearly 1,700 acres during fiscal year 22. Out-of-county tonnage is not expected to grow next year, so tipping fees remain at $3.25 million for approximately 2 million tons and represent about 6% of sources. In December 2019, the RCA board approved a revised MOU with WRCOG for the distribution of TUMP funds to RCA on a quarterly basis and owed back payments through fiscal year 21. Based on current year collections and WRCOG projections of fiscal year 22 TUMP revenues, staff projects $750,000 in TUMP revenues for fiscal year 22. TUMP revenues represent about 1% of sources. Other revenue sources are about 2% of total sources and include reimbursements for services, civic and infrastructure contributions, interest, and other revenue. Operating transfers in relate to funding for reserve management and monitoring and program administration that will be covered by the LDMF revenues. An identical amount is included in the habitat acquisition budget as an operating transfer out. Transfers in are about 6% of sources. Next slide, please. This chart shows LDMF collections since fiscal year 2005. They peaked in fiscal year 2006 prior to the recession. Fiscal year 21 local development mitigation fees were budgeted at $10.5 million as the effect on fees from the pandemic were unknown. However, fee collection has remained strong despite the pandemic. With the adoption of the 2020 Nexus study, staff anticipates LDMF revenue will increase in fiscal year 22 to $20 million. While the numbers are promising, we used a conservative estimate due to many factors. We do not yet know the impact of other economic factors or how many developers will choose to prepay the LDMF if allowed by the jurisdictions. Staff will monitor LDMF revenues throughout the fiscal year. Next slide, please. This chart shows all RCA funding sources comparing the 22 budget to the fiscal 21 amended budget and the current fiscal year 21 projections. Local development mitigation fees are projected to increase 90% from the fiscal year 21 budgeted revenue, but the increase from the current fiscal 21 projections is only about 18%. Land donations are expected to increase over the fiscal year 21 budget and projected amounts by 82%. TUMP revenues are lower since the $2 million owed to RCA under the MOU was repaid as of fiscal year 21. Only quarterly payments are budgeted for fiscal 22. Other revenue is lower in fiscal 22 because fiscal 21 included large amounts of participating special entities revenues for which the budget was amended. Such revenues are difficult to project, so staff was conservative with no fiscal 22 projected revenue from participating special entities. Next slide, please. This table shows RCA spending for its 4 programs. This is consistent with RCA's core responsibilities under the MSHCP and the 2020 Nexus study. Habitat acquisition decreased slightly for just 2% from fiscal year 21 budget. Reserve monitoring and management also decreased slightly by 5%. Program administration decreased 37%. RCTC became the managing agency for RCA in January 2020, off to the county of about $3.9 million. Next slide, please. This slide shows the funding significance of habitat acquisition compared to the other programs. Habitat acquisition represents 85% of total uses, with reserve management being 8% and program administration being only 7%. Endowments, with only $47,000 in projected uses, represents less than 1% of the budget. Next slide, please. As a result of the management agreement with RCTC, RCA no longer has county employees as staff. RCTC staff, which includes some former RCA assigned county employees, provides management services required by RCA. Accordingly, RCA did not budget any salaries and benefits in fiscal year 22. General administration expenditures reflect a 19% decrease from fiscal 21 budget. Many of the administrative costs previously budgeted are now incurred by RCTC and reimbursed by RCA. These costs are now accounted for in contract costs. Contract expenditures reflect a 35% increase over the fiscal year 21 budget. Major contracts include the following: management services agreement with RCTC, to be discussed on the following slide. Land management services with Riverside County Parks, budgeted at nearly $1.5 million, a 3% increase from fiscal year 21 related to staff pay increases. Parks will provide day-to-day land management activities, plus additional reimbursable activities related to deposit agreements and fee credits, as well as fire abatement and endowment related work. Biological monitoring services with Santa Ana Watershed Association, estimated at just over $1.6 million, a 4% increase over fiscal year 21 related to staff pay increases. Debt service consists of the $1 million final installment payment and estimated interest of $10,000 related to a loan agreement with the county to acquire 226 acres of reserve land. Assessment and fee expenditures of $80,000 represent special assessments, including homeowner association fees for RCA-owned land subject to such fees. Habitat acquisition and maintenance budgeted expenditures of $36.3 million reflects a 6% decrease from fiscal 21 budget. The fiscal 22 budget anticipates the use of state and federal grant funds not utilized in fiscal year 21 and greater land donations than fiscal year 21. The fiscal 22 capital outlay budget anticipates costs related to the acquisition improvements of habitat acquired, including $5.8 million for approximately 908 acres of possible ARL, $8.9 million related to donated lands, and $21.5 million in other potential acquisitions, mostly related to state grant funds. Habitat acquisition costs include the purchase price of property acquired, appraisals, title reports, real estate services, legal services, environmental reviews, surveying, and other costs associated with the acquisition of habitat. The 2020 Nexus study permits the use of LDMF revenues for all functions of the RCA. Operating transfers out relates to the transfer of LDMF revenues from the Capital Projects Fund to the General Fund to meet the budget needs for reserve management and monitoring and program administration. Next slide, please. This chart shows use by function with habitat acquisition as the largest expenditure group. The increase in contracts expenditures in the fiscal year 22 budget is partially offset by the lack of salaries and benefits expenditures. Next slide, please. The fiscal year 22 budget includes a full year of RCTC management services, whereas the fiscal year 21 budget only included 6 months of RCTC management services. These management services include RCTC staff salaries and benefits of $3.3 million, general administration costs of $1.6 million related to an estimated administrative cost allocation, board stipends, facilities maintenance and capital outlay, legal audit and legislative advocacy services, and miscellaneous costs. Real property services of $500,000 related to habitat acquisition, and public outreach costs are budgeted at $120,000. One of the board's priorities of the new management agreement with RCTC is to shepherd RCA through a period of change and bring about economies of scale, fiscal efficiencies, and a direct link between conservation and transportation infrastructure. The fiscal year 22 budget reflects the transition of some RCA contracted services to RCTC contracts. Next slide, please. With this overview of the fiscal 22 budget, staff and the executive committee recommend that the board of directors adopt the fiscal year 22 budget and related resolution number 2021-014. The resolution includes the adoption of the budget policies listed in the executive summary, the inclusion of a summary of policies impacting the budget, promotes fiduciary responsibility and organizational excellence. Approve the biological monitoring program work plan and cost estimate included as Appendix B in the fiscal year 22 budget, and approve the Clinton Keith Road overcrossing mitigation monitoring reimbursable program work plan and cost estimate included as Appendix C in the fiscal year 22 budget. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation, and I look forward to your input.
Thank you, Jennifer. I will, I'll just ask one more time. There's no request to speak before I turn it back to the board for questions, comments, or considerations. Okay. All right, then I will do just that. What is the pleasure of the board for questions or comments or considerations?
One question, Madam Chair, Marietta.
Sure. Yes, sir.
So in regard to the auditing on the $85,000 line item, is that the random audit process, the cities and projects where we're collecting fees?
The audit fees, are you asking about the ones in the RCTC contract or the ones that are in the RCA budget line?
RCA.
The RCA ones are directly related to the single audit and the annual financial audit, and the leftover amount that would be paid on the fiscal year 20 audits for those audits of the agreed upon procedures of the cities, yes.
So the remainder of 20 was for the random audit process, and then the remaining two portions are going forward into 21, 22?
For the audits, the agreed upon procedures for fiscal year 21, 22 are going to be paid for in connection with the RCTC audits and then reimbursed to RCTC by RCA.
Right. My concern was originally, and we have discussed this before, that we were going to go on an online process to try and eliminate the audit process. And I wanted to see if that was going to be moving forward, because that's going to save a substantial amount of money in the future, but it's going to also give us more accurate data with respect to who's looking at pulling a permit and paying fees, so that we have a more accurate accounting for what's going on through the member cities.
We have
Madam
started.
Chair,
Oh, sorry.
So if I could take that. Good afternoon, directors. I appreciate seeing you all here today. So with respect to the automatic fee collection, that is one of the items that is on our list of board directed priorities to explore. We've already done the research with WRCOG. They've given us a tour, so to speak, of their program. And so it is on our list of things to do. It is not something that we can accomplish in just a matter of a few months, but it is on our list of of things to do, but I don't see it being in operation in advance of needing to perform the audits that are included in this year's budget.
Okay, so then that was the question. So the amounts that are in the audits will include the random audit process for this year for 2021, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so then we anticipate that in 2022, we might have the new system up and online, or are we allocating funds for that as well?
We don't have a timeline for the implementation of that system at this point. We would have to give you an update once we start exploring what it will take to get that implemented. We don't have a timeline on it to answer that question.
Okay,
But I would just want to point out, even with a new online system, we will still have to have, there will still be auditing associated with an online system. Audits won't completely go away with a new collection system.
I'd like to get some type of timeline where I can reference, whether it's now or in the next couple months on where we're going with that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, we will notate the request for timeline. Is there any other comments or questions? And if not, we'll go to considerations.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Second,
Second.
Waldemar.
Banning.
I have a first for approval for all three of the items. Is that correct, Marietta?
Yes, Madam Chair, it
Okay.
is.
A second by Wildemar, and if not, I think a Banning. So Wildemar or Banning, whichever. And if there's no further discussion, we can go to roll call vote.
District 1,
District 1, yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Corona,
Aye.
Eastville, Eastville. Thank you. Emmett,
Yes.
Europa Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Marina Valley,
Yes.
Marietta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
Wildemar.
Yes.
Thank you. That item passes.
All right. I want to thank staff for a great presentation. Jennifer, thank you. And the entire staff for all your hard work. And that'll take us to item number 8, which is our legislative update. This is a receive and file item. And I know that David is going to give us a stellar presentation of all the updates he has for legislative excitement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members. I'm happy to be with you today. I will provide you with a summary of state and federal legislative activities, and I've got a presentation you can see. Over the last several weeks, your legislative affairs staff and lobbyists in DC and Sacramento have been working and leading the way in advocating for more funding for HCPs and RCA specifically. Next slide, please. In my last presentation, I noted the different elected officials we were making our funding requests to. As a reminder, the avenues for seeking federal funding right now include community project funding and House appropriations, bill report language, congressionally directed spending and Senate appropriations, and programmatic funding. On the state side, we've been working on getting carve-out funding for HCPs in the wildfire and climate resiliency bond measures in SB 45 and AB 1500, and through individual member budget requests. Individual budget requests have required a significant amount of level of detail and community support letters and legislative outreach with very strict deadlines. Next slide, please. Altogether, the legislative affairs team submitted and/or is leading the advocacy effort for over $376 million worth of funding requests between the state legislature and Congress. These requests include both direct funding for RCA for land acquisition and programmatic language to boost funding for state and federal programs to help fund land acquisition for HCPs across the state and the country. As hard as we try, we will not be granted or awarded for every one or even most of our funding requests. We are competing with other agencies locally, statewide, and nationally for limited set of funds. Even so, we'll continue to seek funding and educating our elected officials on the great work being accomplished by the RCA. We'll know more in the next several weeks as to the success of our funding requests, and we've already started to get feedback on the eligibility of some of our projects. We continue to use the RCA funding request as a reason to meet with elected officials and educating them on the RCA and the importance of the MSHCP. This includes meetings with Assembly Members Cervantes and Sayarto. We've also met with the offices of Assemblymember Mays and Medina in the last few weeks to explore funding requests and remind the offices of the significant work the RCA is leading for both conservation and economic development. Last week, we sent to each board member a one-page fact sheet that outlines all of the funding we are requesting in support of our conservation goals so that you are aware of where we're advocating and where our requests are at. An example of the high level of advocacy taking place on May 18th, 2021, on behalf of RCA and HCPs in California, was the testimony provided by Ed Sullivan, Executive Director of the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency, on behalf of the California Habitat Conservation Plan Coalition before the U.S. Senate's Environmental and Public Works Committee on the importance of biodiversity and infrastructure development. I'd like to play a clip of his committee testimony for you now. Philip?
Remember the oceans as well. Senator Padilla, I believe, might be next, and Senator Padilla, I think, is joining us on WebEx. Alex, you there?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to raise a couple of issues and questions with Mr. Sullivan, fellow California. You highlighted, Mr. Sullivan, in your testimony, the proposal to create the Western Riverside County National Wildlife Refuge in Southern California, a few miles east of Los Angeles. California, as you know, is one of the most biodiverse places in the world with thousands and thousands of species. And as you noted, the proposed refuge would directly protect 147 species, 33 of which are threatened or endangered. This area of Southern California is also in need of sustainable development. It's a densely populated area with inequitable access to nature and open spaces, particularly for working class communities and communities of color. So I'm hoping you can expand on your testimony and share with us your thoughts on how the proposed wildlife refuge can help us meet multiple policy priorities here. Number one, helping protect biodiversity of the area, which you know has multiple environmental benefits, while also enabling responsible and sustainable development. And third, helping improve not just access to nature and wildlife, but more equitable access to the outdoors.
Yes, thank you, Senator, for the questions and the opportunity to respond. Yeah, those are great questions. It's complicated when you're trying to balance all these different biodiversity versus public access versus where, affordable housing and a lot of the challenges that we face in California and other parts of the country. I agree with you that sustainable development is the goal, and how we plan responsibly is key. Some of the old development models haven't worked very well. They were auto-centric and focused on people sprawling out in the landscape, and so how do we balance all this? I think it starts at the local level. It's not the locals know best on where to define where development can go, and development that is avoiding those biological hotspots, and then identifying those biological hotspots and protecting them, which is what this proposed refuge designation is proposing. The locals and the local scientists and the implementers of the West Riverside HCP have identified this area as important to achieving the objectives of their habitat conservation plan. So the locals have sort of worked with the federal government to identify this area. So I think the way the feds can help is by approving this designation, and also for increasing funding through the ESA Section 6 program to assist HCPs across the country protect the nation's biodiversity hotspots. With access, that's parts of the refuge could be open to the public. Interpretive exhibits and tours can educate visitors on the importance of biodiversity. Refuge staff and local biologists could implement and adopt, adopt a school program to get kids involved in nature. Residents and school children can help at the refuge volunteering for habitat restoration and projects and general maintenance. So it's basically trying to empower the community to adopt the refuge and work collaboratively. The refuge doesn't necessarily have to be a place that's off limits to people, and how you can kind of integrate the community with the refuge and the refuge with the community. And that's sort of the intent of sustainable development anyways. And to echo with some of the things that John Schmidt was saying about working with private landowners, we do that all the time here. We work with ranchers, and they're an important component of implementing a local approach to conservation, and then on the other side, working with local municipalities to encourage them to develop more sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Philip, next slide, please. I cannot express how valuable it was for Mr. Sullivan to speak on behalf of Representative Calvert's Wildlife Refuge Bill, which the RCA provided a support position on earlier this year, and our plan before the Senate committee. And his remarks weren't by accident, but the result of our strong partnership with the coalition and our ongoing strategic communication in DC. These coordinating efforts provide an opportunity to showcase the value of HCPs in hearings like this one. The RCA has a story to tell, and we're taking every opportunity to use our voices to tell that story. The governor released his May budget revise earlier this month. The May revision stands in stark contrast to the budget of 12 months ago. Compared to a projected budget deficit of $54 billion a year ago, the state now has a projected $75.7 billion surplus. The California Natural Resources Agency, the May revision includes investments to expand environmental education, enhance safe, reliable access to state parks and public lands, coasts, and other natural, historic, and cultural resources, and increase recreation opportunities. We'd love to see such funding go to Wildlife Conservation Board to expedite the review and approval of land acquisitions from federal Section 6 programs, and we're working to advocate for that funding. The Legislative Affairs team is looking at what new funding might be available for the MSHCP. On the federal side, we continue to educate our members on the MSHCP and the Wildlife Refuge Bill, as well as seek funding for our plan. We'll continue to do so in the weeks and months ahead. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. Before I turn it over, I just want to, I think the executive committee heard this the day, I believe, that it actually happened. It was like hot off the press that day. And we were really excited to hear that not only was it aligning, I mean, the comments are almost verbatim our priorities for RCA, right? Empowering the education part, understanding our balance between sustainable and responsible development. I mean, this literally couldn't have been better for us, but while it's a great win, the funding coming from Section 6, when the dollars start rolling in, that's really the true success. But this is a really big step to have that kind of those comments in the hearing, and we were really excited to hear that. So I just want to thank staff, because that is not because of us, that's because of all the work that goes into proactively informing our partners, and they had exactly what they needed to make that point. So valuable for HCPs everywhere, but most important, valuable for us. Very fantastic. Comments, questions? This is a receive and file, so we don't need considerations, but any comments or questions?
I have a comment. Marianne, hi.
Hi.
Just the fact that this has risen to this level and we've got the additional attention of Senator Sullivan, he obviously needs to be in the loop for all of our communiques and communication and just regular updates of all the positive things that are happening with RCA. I think this puts us at the top of the visibility list in Washington. And we know we've been there for a long time, but we haven't really been there. I mean, we know that we are a model agency in the nation. And now we have a chance to, increase that visibility because we've got, several people involved. So the more positive information we can send them, even just little updates, it could be 2 or 3 lines. Hey, look what's going on with RCA now. I think this is wonderful and everyone's to be commended. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marianne. Any other comments? I'm counting to 10 as I speak in my head. So, okay. All right. Thank you, David, for your presentation and your work. We appreciate you. That's going to take us to item number 9, which is presentation. And Betsy's going to give us our species of the month.
Good afternoon to the board. I'm Betsy Dion. This month, our species of the month is the double-crested cormorant. Next slide. Thank you. The double-crested cormorant is a large aquatic bird with dark brown to black plumage, a yellow bill, and reddish-orange chin. Its range is along the entire Pacific coast from the Aleutians to southern Baja and along the Atlantic coast from Newfoundland south to Florida. They can be found in our plan area year-round. It is a state species of special concern, and its habitat consists of open water with trees nearby for roosting. This bird can dive from the water surface to catch fish and can swim up to 72 feet underwater. Threats to this species include habitat loss, pesticides, and human-caused mortality. Next slide. The cormorant nests on the mainland in tall trees, wide rocky ledges on cliffs, or rugged slopes near or adjacent to the aquatic environment. The cormorants are monogamous and raise their young together. Nesting sites are communal and called rookeries, and they reuse these sites year after year. Egg laying happens from April to June, and their clutch size is 3 to 4 eggs. The eggs will hatch within a month, and the young can fly by 6 weeks old. The average age of a cormorant is 6 years, but the oldest cormorant on record was 17 years old. The species objectives for the species are to include within the MSHCP conservation area 16,100 acres of open water habitat, including Lake Matthews, Diamond Valley Lake, Lake Skinner, Lake Elsinore, Vale Lake, Lake Paris, Mystic Lake, Prado Basin and the Santa Ana River, and the wetland habitats within Prado Basin and the Santa Ana River. The above areas are all in conservation. The second objective is to include within the MSHCP conservation area the known rookery in the Prado Basin / Santa Ana River. And this rookery is in conservation and currently supports at least 35 nests. The last objective for the species is to maintain continued use and presence in 75% of the core areas. This monitoring objective has been met for the species, with the species being detected in 7 of the areas identified in the species objectives. That's all I have today for the cormorant. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Betsy. Any comments, questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
all I can say is Canyon Lake has got lots of cormorants and they're very frequent visitors. I would say the population, I can't count as high as I see how many, but at times it appears there's several thousand of them here.
Believe it or not, I've seen them at the Temecula Duck Pond. because they land in the tops of the nearby trees, they've completely stripped the tops of those trees of leaves. So, and for a long time, I didn't know what it was, but now I know, so thanks.
We have hundreds of them at Lake Narconian also. They'll come in and it's amazing to watch them. So.
Well, I actually had to remove 2 large pine trees because of the byproducts that they left that were continually staining and having, let's say, not a pleasant odor.
Well, thank you, Betsy, for your presentation. We also have them frequenting in Lake Elsinore, so we are very familiar, but we learned a little bit today, so we appreciate that. Okay, that is going to take us to our item number 10, which is our executive director report. And I am going to turn it over to Anne to get us an update on our Nexus study and our implementation.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. I am very happy to report that all of the cities have adopted all of the necessary documentation for implementation of the fee. The county will be having their public hearing tomorrow, and they could possibly adopt tomorrow as well. So the end is in sight in terms of implementation. It's been a very busy handful of months here. I'd like to express appreciation from the RCA staff to each of the member agencies and your teams, because it wouldn't have been possible to have this much progress in such a short amount of time without their collaboration and cooperation. And even though the fees are have now been adopted by the city councils, we will continue our close collaboration with the member agency staff as we start moving into implementation. So it's been really rewarding, not only to have this kind of collaboration, but also to be able to work under the leadership of all of you as you've helped to lead this effort, not only approving the Nexus study, but also leading the efforts in your individual jurisdictions. So thank you to the board. We very much appreciate your support and the support of your staff. So thank you very much. And we look forward to July 1st to start implementation. Thank you.
All right. I will echo Anne's comments and say that quite a feat to get all these member agencies together, organized, and onto approval. So, but that doesn't mean if there's not questions or things that come up, we're not done. Implementation is next, and I know the staff has been really great and they will continue to be supportive should you have any questions in your agency or something comes up. So just remember that, keep that in your back pocket. That is it, unless there's anything else. Is there any announcements other than we will definitely keep our colleague in our thoughts, Crystal from San Jacinto. If there's anything else, now is your time. Okay, then your time is up now and it's adjournment, and I will see you all on July 12th, and we will continue to be on Zoom, so we will meet virtually then.
Thank you, Natasha. Bye, everybody.